Businesses, they live in this state of constant, uncomfortable flux.
Right.
Prices change, input costs start to creep up, and target profits, well, they move like goalposts in a gale.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge for any manager isn't just, surviving that. It's knowing with precision exactly how exposed your company is to those shifts.
And knowing which variable, whether it's a cost or a price, carries the most systemic risk. You need a kind of dashboard for your business model.
A dashboard, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're faced with a sudden small increase in raw material costs, do you need to sell 100 more items or maybe 10,000 more?
And most people don't know the answer.
Exactly. Understanding that scale of exposure is what transforms raw financial data into a functional roadmap for real-time decisions, for risk assessment.
And that is our mission today. We're taking the foundational cost volume profit equation, the CVP equation, and we're moving straight into CVP sensitivity analysis.
We're going beyond just the simple break-even point.
Way beyond. We want to develop the intuition, what we're calling the CVP muscle, that you need to stress test scenarios and build, well, truly resilient business models.
Okay. So to start developing that muscle, we need a solid anchor point, a base case.
Where are we starting?
We're looking at a scenario from the sources for Jules Corporation. It's a company that sells baseball gloves.
Okay.
And our base case parameters are these. The selling price is a steady $200 per glove. The variable cost is $110.
Which gives us a $90 contribution margin per unit.
A healthy one. And their operational constraints are fixed costs of $63,000 with a target profit goal of $36,000 for the period.
Okay, so that's our baseline.
Right. And when we crunch those original numbers, we find that Jules Corporation needs to sell exactly 1,100 units to hit that profit target.
1,100 units, that's our magic number, our strategic baseline. All right, let's unpack this with our first major change.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when a fixed cost jumps? I mean, this is a classic strategic decision, right?
Oh, absolutely. Investing in new machinery, signing a more expensive lease.
Or expanding your salaried IP staff. It's an investment, but it comes at a volume cost.
It does. So let's analyze a specific case from the sources. Fixed costs increased by $18,000.
So from $63,000 up to $81,000.
All the way up. And for our analysis, management still demands that original $36,000 target profit.
So the $90 contribution margin per unit hasn't changed. Why do we still, stick to the rigorous CVP equation here? Why not just try to estimate the impact of that $18,000?
Because the systematic approach forces us to account for the total financial requirement. The CM now has to cover two things.
The higher fixed costs.
Yeah, right, the $81,000 plus the target profit of $36,000. That gives us a new total requirement of $117,000.
And when you divide that $117,000 requirement by the $90 CM per unit.
The units needed rise sharply to 1,300.
Wow.
And the key insight here is the leverage involved. That $18,000 jump in fixed costs, it required an additional 200 units to be sold.
From 1,100 to 1,300.
That is a massive operational commitment just to cover one fixed expense change.
That volume jump is shocking enough, but, the real question isn't just the math. It's what that $18,000 increase actually cost us in revenue.
Exactly. Let's verify the scale. To sell 1,300 units at $200 each, our total required revenue jumps to $260,000.
And the old target was only $220,000.
Correct. So that $18,000 fixed cost decrease actually requires the company to generate $40,000 in additional revenue.
Just to keep the profit level static at $36,000.
Just to stay put.
$40,000 in extra revenue to pay for an $18,000 expense. That leverage it's intense.
We can even quantify that risk with a multiplier. Since the fixed cost increase was $18,000 and it demanded $40,000 in additional revenue, we can look at that ratio.
Okay.
Each $1 increase in fixed costs requires about $2.22 in additional contribution margin to offset it. And that relationship is crucial for assessing how quickly you can scale to cover new overhead.
So you're saying the contribution margin is the ultimate shock absorber. It's the lifeblood that has to absorb all these operational hits.
Precisely. The contribution margin per unit, that $90, is the fundamental engine driving recovery or growth. We can simplify our thinking for any scenario.
How so?
The change in units needed is simply the change in the overall requirement, whether that's a higher profit or higher costs, divided by the contribution margin per unit.
So now we can use that to compare how different variables affect the units required, and we can really see where the sensitivities lie.
Let's do it.
So let's stick with that higher fixed cost environment. So 81,000 fixed costs, 36,000 target profit. Our total requirement is locked at 117,000, and we need 1,300 units.
Okay. Let's look at 3 high-impact variables that could shift one at a time.
First one, the killer. A variable cost change. What if the cost of raw materials, let's say high-grade leather for the gloves, goes up by only $5 per unit?
So from 110 to 115,
Just $5.
that seemingly small $5 change is devastating
Why?
because it reduces the contribution margin per unit from $90 down to $85. So now we divide that stable $117,000 requirement by the new $85 CM,
And the units needed jump to?
1,376.
Wait a minute. The massive $18,000 increase in fixed costs only pushed us from 1,100 to 1,300 units.
Right.
But a mere $5 change in variable costs pushed us even higher to 1,376. That is the aha moment of sensitivity analysis.
It illustrates the danger perfectly. Variable costs are exponential risk. A $5 increase affects 100% of the gloves you sell.
Whereas fixed costs get spread out.
Exactly. Variable costs are a tax on every single unit. If your variable costs are high, your business model is incredibly brittle.
It's like the difference between raising the rent on your factory, a fixed cost, versus thinning the floorboards in your factory, a variable cost. The floorboards are the structure supporting every single unit you produce.
That's a great analogy. Now let's consider the opposite direction, a positive change, a selling price change.
Okay.
If the market lets us increase the price by $10 from 200 to 210, the CM rises to an even $100.
With a $100 CM, we divide the same 117,000 requirement by that, and the units needed immediately drop to 1,170.
A small price increase is highly effective. It makes sense, right? It affects both the top-line revenue and the CM. And finally, a change in target profit. Let's say management decides they want $50,000 in profit instead of $36,000. Everything else stays at the base rate.
So $90 CM, $63,000 fixed costs.
The requirement jumps to $113,000. Divide that by the $90 CM, and the units needed jump to 1,256.
So if we connect all these examples back to risk assessment, the hierarchy becomes crystal clear.
What's fascinating here is that variable cost changes always carry the highest, most insidious risk. They directly reduce the contribution margin dollar for dollar. There's no buffer.
Right.
Price changes are also very high impact. Fixed costs are less sensitive, not because they aren't big, but because their cost is spread across all units.
And before we move on, one practical rule for all managers listening. Always round up when you calculate units.
Always.
If your math says you need, 1,414.9 units, you must sell 1,415 units. You can't sell a fraction of a glove.
And you have to ensure that profit goal is met, or ideally, slightly exceeded. This isn't theoretical math, it's practical application.
Okay, let's move from Jules Corporation to a completely different industry to show how this applies to major strategic trade-offs. We're going to look at Erda Rock, a crushed rock business.
And they face a classic choice, operational leverage.
Right. They're looking at automation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in their original scenario, Erda Rock had a very tight $2 contribution margin per ton with $60,000 in fixed costs. That gave them a 30,000-ton break-even point.
Now they're considering a major automation investment, a new, highly efficient crusher. This decision drastically increases their fixed cost jump by 20,000 to 80,000.
But their variable costs dropped significantly, boosting their CM per unit all the way to $4 per ton.
Doubled.
It doubled. So if we run the break-even calculation on that automated scenario, we divide the new $80,000 fixed costs by that powerful $4 contribution margin. And what
The
happened?
break-even point drops.
It drops dramatically to 20,000 tons.
So wait, despite taking on $20,000 more in fixed expenses, the doubled CM per unit reduces the break-even point by 10,000 tons.
Yes. This means the business is now fundamentally safer if they can sell above 20,000 tons. The reduction in variable risk far outweighed the increase in fixed cost.
That trade-off is the essence of strategic CVP analysis.
It is. You've accepted a higher risk floor. You have to cover 80,000 instead of 60,000, but your profit potential, your margin leverage, is now much higher. If sales are strong, you make much more money per turn.
This raises a really important question. What happens when market conditions just conspire against you? How do we handle a perfect storm of simultaneous changes? Because that's where real-world risk lives.
This is the ultimate stress test. Let's assume a severe scenario for Erda. Let's imagine fixed costs go up 10% to 66,000.
Okay.
Variable costs increase 20% because of fuel and energy. And at the same time, the selling price drops 15% because a new competitor enters the market.
And they still want to make a profit.
Let's say they still want a conservative target profit of 35,000.
That combination sounds financially catastrophic.
It is. The new contribution margin plummets from the original $2 per ton down to just 30 cents per ton.
30 cents?
Yeah. So we calculate the new tons needed to cover the 66,000 in fixed costs plus the $35,000 target profit, a total of $101,000.
101,000 divided by 30 cents cm per ton.
The result is 336,667 tons.
Wow. And the original volume was only 67,500 tons.
Right. The massive increase instantly illustrates the risk. This scenario would be utterly infeasible. A manager looking at this knows immediately they have to renegotiate contracts, slash costs, or change the entire product line.
And that analysis takes seconds using the CVP structure.
It's the true power of proactive CVP planning.
So managers can use this to evaluate decisions before they're made. It gives you actionable thresholds. If we go back to Jules Corporation for a second, if a proposed marketing campaign cost $18,000, increasing FC,
We already know the answer.
CVP told us we must generate at least 200 additional unit sales to justify that expense.
Exactly. And if the marketing team projects they can only generate 150 additional sales, you deny the campaign.
The CVP calculation just stopped you from making a losing strategic choice.
Assuming nothing else changes, yes.
We can also use it for straightforward trade-offs. What if a consultant suggests a new production technique? It gives you a $10 reduction in variable cost, a huge win, but it requires a $5,000 increase in fixed costs for licensing. Which decision is superior?
We model it. At the original 1,100 units, the new higher CM $100 instantly increases the total profit to $42,000, even with slightly higher fixed costs.
Which is significantly better than the $36,000 original profit.
It's a clear win. CVP analysis shows this trade-off is superior. It's not about estimating, it's about modeling the definitive outcome.
And the systematic structure, it prevents panic. It builds that confidence we talked about at the start.
Yes. We've shown how to handle fixed cost changes, analyze variable cost risk, model automation, and stress test that perfect storm scenario.
The beauty of this process is that the same framework applies across all levels of complexity.
It does. And for you, the listener, we can summarize this path to mastery not just as calculation steps, but as a strategic decision-making structure.
We want you to adopt a 5-step strategic framework whenever you face a business dilemma involving costs, price, or volume.
Step 1. Define the parameters. Clearly outline your current baseline price, VC, FC, target profit, and the proposed changes. Scenario A versus Scenario B.
Step 2. Model the impact. Structure the CVP equation to account for all the variables, especially that critical impact on the contribution margin.
Step 3. Calculate the consequence. Solve for the unknown. Usually it's the volume required using the CM as your key divisor.
Step 4. Stress test the result. Verify the number by plugging it back into the equation. Make sure the target profit is met, and look for that leverage multiplier we found earlier.
And finally, Step 5. Drive the strategic decision. Interpret the numbers. Does this proposal reduce our break-even? Is the required sales volume feasible? This step is what moves you from being a calculator to a strategist.
The ultimate goal here isn't just knowing how to calculate a single break-even point anymore.
Not at all.
It's about developing the intuition to understand the relationship between, say, a $5 variable cost increase and a $20,000 fixed cost increase.
That systematic, rigorous structure is what gives managers verifiable confidence to handle any combination of market volatility. The true value of CVP analysis lies not in arriving at one number,
but in comparing alternatives.
Exactly. Quantitatively comparing Scenario A versus Scenario B before you commit resources. It moves the management conversation directly to actionable strategy.
By mastering sensitivity analysis, you transform CVP from a static accounting tool into a dynamic, strategic decision-making framework.
And that leads to our final thought for you to explore. We've established that variable cost increases are consistently the most sensitive drivers of risk.
Right.
So, what is the ideal ratio of fixed costs to variable costs, your operational leverage, that creates the most resilient business model for your particular industry?
Hmm.
If you face volatile raw material prices, maybe you need to automate more, accept higher fixed costs to protect that crucial contribution margin. This is where the strategic power of CVP truly begins structuring your entire cost base for market resilience.
Now you have the structure to figure it out. Go apply this new
Yeah.
systematic framework.